Good morning and welcome to this Sunday service with the Eno River Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. My name is Reverend Jacqueline Brett, and whoever you are, wherever you come from, whatever your race, your gender, whomever you love, and wherever you are on your spiritual journey, we welcome you to this beloved community. If you're new to our community, and especially if you're visiting with us this morning, I invite you to introduce yourself in the chat box. You'll also find a link there that will help you to learn more about who we are. And we also invite you to the Inquirer series of classes for visitors and newcomers that take place at 12 noon on Zoom today. The Inquirer series will give you an opportunity to meet ministers, staff members, and key leaders in the congregation as you learn more about ERUUF. You can find details on how to access the Zoom link for Inquirers at the end of the service at ERUUF.org. Just go down to the events section of the homepage. We look forward to meeting you at the Inquirers class. Though our Sunday morning services are being produced from the sanctuary, they will continue to be live streamed only as we do our part to slow the spread of COVID-19. Unless otherwise announced, all programs continue as they have online. You can find out details about all of this, as well as information on what's going on at ERUUF in coming weeks at ERUUF.org. We are so happy, I'm so happy to remind you that ERUUF is an early voting site for Durham County. As of yesterday, we had more than 6,000 people exercise their right to vote here at ERUUF. If you're a resident of Durham County, if you know folks who are residents and have not yet voted, come on down to cast your vote in this important election. Voting begins at 2 p.m. today. You can also register to vote at this time if you have not already done so. Our service today is a sound delight and ritual delight, and it is led by Reverend Deborah Cayer, accompanied by worship associate Cheryl Turney and guest percussionist Beverly Botsford. For this service, we invite you to have on hand a piece of paper to write on, something simple like a recycled back of an envelope from junk mail would be just fine, along with something to write with. That's all that you'll need, and we ask that you gather them for this service. Music today is presented by Kate Lewis on piano, and Pam DeLavore is our cantor. Today's tech team is Sean Tremble, Michelle Sager, and Jenny Jolly, with Stephen Daniel on sound. So, I invite us now to center ourselves. And let's all together take a deep breath in. And let it out. And we begin our service.
Our opening words today are from Drumming at the Edge of Magic by Mickey Hart. He was the drummer for the Grateful Dead. Conventional wisdom maintains that 15 billion years ago, the blank page of the universe exploded and our story began. We call this fortunate event the Big Bang, which is a bit misleading since the conditions for sound didn't arise until almost 1 billion years later, and conditions for ears sometime after that. A better way to begin might be to say that 15 billion years ago, the universe exploded. And the beat began. Since what emerged from that thick soup of neutrinos and protons were rhythmic pulses vibrating through empty space, keying the formation of galaxies, solar systems, planets, us. Hindus believe there is a seed of sound at the heart of creation, the nada, the essence of reality reverberating as 1,000 distant thunders. In the beginning was noise, and noise begat rhythm, and rhythm begat everything else. Into this cosmic pulsing, humans arrived, and over time, grouped rhythmic patterns into language. And still, always, everywhere we looked, we saw rhythms, patterns moving through time, in the cycles of the stars, and the migrations of animals. In the fruiting and withering of the plants we gathered. Always, rhythm was at the heart of mystery.
We light our chalice as a reminder of the great mystery at the heart of the universe, the beginning of it all. First, there was light. Then, there was rhythm, throbbing with the pulse of time and mystery. And then life, our planet's life, our life. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near. Pam will lead us in singing. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour,
struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour. Gathered here in one strong body. Gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near. Spirit, draw near.
We gather this morning in great mystery. For over 14 billion years, the universe has been pulsing rhythmic patterns. If you put 2 fingers on your wrist or on your neck, on a pulse point, you can feel the rhythms of the universe in your own body, in your blood flow, in your heartbeat. When we have sense and awareness of this, Unitarian Universalists speak about the interconnected web of life, and we know that we are part of all of this. We're not separate from it, we're part of it. Our life is nested, it's held within all of these interconnections, all of the relationships that we spoke of earlier, particles, atoms, molecules, the planet, the solar system, galaxies. We belong here, each of us, every single one of us, equally the same. We are nested here within all of this. This is our truest home. And what can also happen is that we fall out of rhythm. It happens when there's distraction, when we forget the sacred story of our origins and our relationships, when we forget right and good ways to behave to help maintain all of this. In this morning's service, we're going to listen for the sound of home and remember the way to that place, this place. We'll begin by naming the issues that we face. Later this morning, we'll listen to the wisdom that dwells within each of us. Find our own rhythm and create an intention that will turn into a mantra. But first, we'll begin by listening to the people who have already begun this process because they have had to, because their lives are deeply affected and impacted, because we are so out of order, so out of relationship with each other and with the earth itself. This video is by 350.org.
Not climate chaos, not a pandemic, not voter suppression can stop climate and environmental voters from being heard in this election. In 2016, 10.1 million environmentalists who were registered voters didn't vote. In 2020, all of us will be counted. We are voting so our leaders will answer to us. When we demand clear air in California and clean water in Detroit, when we stand to protect our lands, when we put our bodies on the line to stop the fossil fuel industry from catalyzing more hurricanes, more wildfires, more floods, more oil spills that ravage our homes and our communities. When we dream of our planet's future and our grandchildren's future, and when we demand those who threaten it, whether by pipelines or by voter suppression, stop in their tracks. Our changing climate tells us a story of our connection to each other in the web of life. How what people do in one place impacts another. how the same air pollution that is making our frontline communities sick in Texas is also creating ever stronger hurricanes in Louisiana. And we are counting on each other in this election to get out the vote, to show that we are determined to win our future back, to win our future back from those who threaten it. And nothing can stop us.
Not climate chaos, not a pandemic, not voter suppression can stop activists and voters from participating in this election. Those words and those images fill my heart and bring me hope, and I sorely need it. I'm guessing you do too. Because we are living in a time of unprecedented systemic climate disruption, which intersects precisely with systemic oppression of people with black and brown skin. The video goes on to name all the terrible things that have happened because we have become so disconnected, because we have forgotten our relationships. Just in terms of climate change, weather patterns are disrupted, as we're witnessing in the American West. Huge wildfires, fed by years of severe drought, spark up, and meeting little resistance, they spring to life and roar into densely populated areas. The shock and the utter destruction is overwhelming for new climate refugees, people who are displaced. Especially, it's disrupting for the exhausted firefighters, many of whom are also residents and are also displaced. Can you imagine? Farther south, 4 major hurricanes have slammed into the Louisiana Gulf Coast. Another one is teeing up to make a landing. And the hurricane season is not even over. These have been massive storms, and when they've calmed back down as they travel north, they still dump rain that is measured in some places in feet, not inches. And yet, even for us, it has been drought or flood. At times this summer, our gardens have been very dry, and then they've been overflowing, flooded with water. So when we're disconnected from each other, people with more power can get very callous, and they can make terrible decisions as they try to save money or make a profit. In Michigan, that has meant that the water for the city of Flint, the whole city has been poisoned, and especially children and people with immunocompromised conditions, especially the most vulnerable, have been severely affected. Everyone, though, has been affected. When we're disconnected from each other, our agreements break down. For nearly 20 years, oil companies have tried to break treaties with Native American tribes yet again in order to create a pipeline from central Canada to processing places in the United States. It's deeply immoral to try and break those treaties. And for the health and survival of all on Earth, that oil really ought to remain in the ground. There has been resistance by indigenous activists and their allies at Standing Rock and other places, and it's required great courage in the face of tremendous oil company intimidation. After years of frightening confrontations, the oil companies' efforts have finally stopped. But what's actually halted the process is that right now there's too much oil available on the world markets, and there would be no demand for this very expensive extracted oil. So it's good that that particular threat has passed, but the threats from an oil-based world economy continue to loom large. At times, we get disconnected from sacred knowledge. At times, because we've forgotten the sacred stories, or because the stories we know no longer are powerful enough to help guide us in this different time, this more complex time. Or maybe because we need a new story that we have not even heard yet. whatever reason, when we don't have a sacred story to guide us, we get lost. We get disconnected. And we can make terrible decisions about what to do with our power. We can harm each other terribly when this happens. And as the climate justice video reminds us, we have choices. And we don't have to live like this. We can join together. We can remember who we are and whose we are. And we can work for justice together. Where to begin? We begin by paying attention and by listening to science, to sacred traditions, to the people who are most affected. It's the right thing to do, and they have up-close, detailed information about the impact of what's going on. Sometimes it takes a crisis to remind us that we can pay attention to our own inner wisdom, and it will help us find our way home. The reading this morning is called Awakening to the Direction Called Home by Carol Ann Casbon. Cheryl Turney will read it for us now.
She began with 8 hatchlings, but only 7 ducklings remain. Her brood follows her in a straight line, then plops awkwardly into the pond to eat bugs and algae, paddle about in safe waters. Sipping coffee, I know spying on them is the best part of my day. Mother duck stands tall in their midst, a protective giant next to her midget hatchlings, tilting her head, watching for osprey, owls, and other dangers. She lets her brood scatter, then feeds hungrily herself, ever vigilant and famished. She works so hard. When it's time to leave, the ducklings line up to follow her, except for the most independent one, off feeding under a bush, missing the communal exodus. Realizing she's suddenly alone, the duckling panics, then frantically darts about, stridently peeping. If Mama Duck had heard, she would surely have returned for her. My heart clenches to witness this survival drama. I want to rescue her little fuzzy body, return her to Mommy. But this would terrify her and rob her of the critical lesson, how to find her own way home. Finally, the little lost one stands still and collects herself, listens. Then, in this stillness, it dawns on her where they often feed, and she speedily heads in that direction. I begin to breathe again. Next time I am lost, in a panic, I want to remember this tiny duckling, awaken to her deeper instinctual wisdom. Stop and listen for home, and then head there, straight away. It is simply and always awaiting my return.
I invite you to join me now in a spirit of prayer. Spirit of love that draws us together, we give thanks for the power and beauty of this precious autumn day, that we have been given yet another day to live, to offer still more love to a divided world, to hold love deeply embedded in our hearts as an act of faith that we embody and live into, and that we are each ever conscious of the heartbeat of our beloved planet resonating with our own and compelling us to act in its behalf. We lift up the joys, milestones, and concerns held in the hearts of each person in this community. We offer prayers of healing for those in need of healing, prayers to comfort those in need of comforting, prayers of joy and celebration for those who wish to celebrate, and prayers of protection for our democracy, that our communities and our nation become fully inclusive, truly anti-racist, and wholly committed to freedom, liberation, and justice for all. We pray for sound and just leadership throughout our land and in every nation of the world. May we never give up holding an active and determined hope in faith and love, and a willingness to be and do what is required to sustain it. May courage be infused in us all. And let us hold all of these in our hearts for a moment of silence. Amen, Ashe, and blessed be.
Greetings. This is the time of year when we all celebrate the gifts of our harvest with gratitude, with shared family and friends. And this is the time of year when I celebrate the gift of gourds. I'm talking about that amazing fruit of the earth that you can actually plant in your garden. The gourd has many, 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 many different names because it is found in many, many different cultures, all with different languages. Gourd, calabash, güiro, calabaza, those are just a few. The gourd is the oldest known cultivated plant in the history of civilization. Bet you didn't know that. The gourd dates back to over 3,000 years. In parts of the continent of Africa, remnants of gourds have been found from 3,000 years ago. Some scientists say that the gourd, a long, long time ago, might have actually floated across the ocean with the seeds intact all the way to South America. I love that this time of year, when my mind turns to gourds, I am reminded of connections with history, with culture, and with nature all over the world. If you live in Asia, you might have a good luck gourd hanging in your car, in your window. In Peru and parts of South America, they carve their history and beautiful stories on gourds to remember who they are. Sometimes gourds are used to call energy. Sometimes gourds are used to clean our bodies. It's called a loofah. Yes, it's a gourd. Sometimes gourds are used as shakers. Gourds come in many, many shapes and sizes. Some gourds even imitate a pair of spoons. You can even make your own instruments out of gourds, like this gourd kazoo I tried to make. Most of all, and most amazing, the gourd is a container. For me, the gourd is a container of spirit, of love, of wisdom, of intentions. But the gourd has been a container in cultures for many, many, many years. And one of its most important uses over centuries, I'm talking about before the invention of plastic, was something really important that we all share. They hold water. What did people do before they had a plastic container? Maybe they used a ceramic container. Look at the shape of this gourd. I bet the ceramic makers got their first ideas from the gourd. Well, my most impactful experience with the gourd was a long, long time ago. I was only 19, and I took off on an adventure of my life. I'm talking about a coming-of-age adventure, traveling all the way through Central America to the coast of Colombia with my best friend, Jenny Honey. After we made friends with our Colombian hosts there, our Colombian friends, we were invited to travel up the mountains in La Sierra Nevada de Colombia to where our friends had been allowed to buy land near an amazing, amazing group of indigenous people called the Kogi. We got permission to be with this pre-Columbian indigenous group, and it changed my life. We walked 2 days from the ocean up into the mountains that rose straight up out of the ocean, and halfway between the snow on the mountain and the ocean was the village that we went to, Taminaka. The Kogi welcomed us with open arms in spite of the fact they may have never even met a gringa before. It was very humbling. And then, of course, we helped with the work. And some of that work, the most important part of that work, was going down to the stream and getting a huge gourd full of water and carrying it back to our campsite on big mochilas. I'll never think about water in the same way again. And I'll also never think about taking our earth for granted in the same way again. The Kogi are the descendants of an ancient civilization called the Tairona. And the Kogi, for hundreds and hundreds of years, have lived in their world, in their society, where they are completely one with the natural world. It rules their political consciousness, it rules their social consciousness, and it rules their spiritual consciousness. Gourds are an integral part of their spiritual practice as well as their divination. The Kogi, they actually had sustainable agriculture in different levels of environment up and down the mountains. And in the 90s, they reached out to the rest of the world, the elder brothers warning from the heart of the world, reaching out to their younger brothers to please, please take care of the earth, because the snow that was part of their culture was getting less and less and less. Cosmology is part of gourd lore all over the world. And I have heard that in Nigeria, they think of the world in a way as a giant round gourd. And the top half of that gourd is in complete balance with the bottom half. And the bottom half represents the earth, the people, represents our physical world. And the top half is the world of the unseen. The top half of that gourd, equally balanced, includes the ancestors, the reverence for nature, the reverence for God. Together, that gourd symbolizes the balance of life. Well, there's a Nigerian tradition for a beaded gourd that has traveled to the island of Cuba. And in Cuba, the beaded gourd is actually used in ceremony. And an orchestra of beaded gourds, along with a bell, along with a bass drum, a tumba, and along, of course, with singers and chorus. I'm going to give you a little taste of some of the rhythms used in that ceremony, and I'm going to warn you, it's about energy, and I'm going to warn you, they don't do that. That was my part. Some of my teachers, my most inspired drummers, master drummers of the world, introduced me to this half a world here, an instrument that has been used for hundreds and hundreds of years, particularly on the continent of Africa. Women are connected to this instrument because this is what they use to go down to the stream and to wash the clothes, and then developed their own styles of music. Well, this upturned gourd is often called the calabash or the fay. And let's see what this gourd wants to say today. You could carve them, cut them, drill them, fill them with love, with creativity, wisdom, rhythm of life.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Bev. That was amazing to listen to inner and outer. Could you hear the deeper tones in the calabash and then the outer sound? So there's this conversation between inner and outer, I think, going on there. So what do we listen for? How do we listen? And especially, how do we listen so we know where we are in the middle of all of these rhythms and patterns, right? Well, we can listen to the sacred stories, to the wisdom of our ancestors. Unitarian Universalists are religious liberals. We value the religious texts of all of the world's traditions, whether they're written down or not, from the oral tradition for sure, because we believe each contains the best that that tradition has to offer of their sacred knowledge. But as religious liberals, we tend to believe that people, fully inspired and at the same time fully human, were the ones who created those scriptures and wrote down those texts and created those rhythms and patterns. There's something incredibly moving about that, as well as incredibly valuable. So what else can we listen to? We can listen to the people who live close to nature, people who live near the wild where corporate footprints don't yet exist, people who live where old ways are still practiced and mystery can still be felt and sensed and communicated with using ancient spiritual techniques such as ceremony and ritual and prayer and trance. The Kogi people observe nature and practice being in relationship with the divine within it. When they noticed big changes happening in the world around them, they went to investigate, not with mechanical instruments, but with their full senses, with trance, with prayer, with ritual and ceremony. They went to talk with the divine. And when their elders came back from that experience with a message, it was for the world. Wake up. Stop burning fossil fuels. We who are not of that culture can also listen to mystery. We can do this, and we can still hold on to science. Yay, science! And we can remember that we don't have to choose between ceremony and science, because we don't live in an either-or world. We don't have to choose. It's also important that we remember that there's more to life than what we think, because we tend to live up in our heads, and so we forget that there is so much more to life than thinking. Sometimes this causes tension within us, and that's actually just fine, because when we hold something that's true in tension with something that's also true, those are the exact conditions for innovation and for inspiration. That's where inspiration comes from. And living with this kind of tension and hanging in there to see what develops is what some people call the third way. It's the place that Einstein might have had in mind when he told us that the same kind of thinking that got us into this situation is not the thinking that's going to get us out of it. We need something new, something that doesn't yet exist. Holding what's true, that when it's in tension, that's a way for a third way to pop out, for something new to be born, and us with it. We need to embrace this paradoxical way of engaging so that we can show up and be engaged with the world. So we really need to listen to others who do not think the same way that we do. And we need to believe that they have something wise and good to share, even when at times their words or their concepts might seem very strange. We need to simply listen and consider what they're offering. Reverend Stacy Grove has been in relationship with a group of people working in what is part of now Wyoming in the Black Hills. They're working on a process of truth-telling and ancestral healing between modern-day descendants of Lakota Sioux leaders and descendants of General William S. Harney, who betrayed a significant treaty in the late 1870s that really harmed the Lakota people. Basil Braveheart, a contemporary Lakota elder, has asked Stacy to help him share this message with others. And because he's asked, we're happy to help. In this communication, he uses the word prayer, and what he means by this is not about petitioning a distant God for something. Here, when he says prayer, he's talking about always moving through this time with gratitude. So if we focus on gratitude, it becomes a frame. It becomes the way that we look at the world. And so we begin to focus our attention on goodness and abundance and connection. And we notice what's possible. And when we make choices to help these things, when we nurture and support these things, we move forward into a good future, and we're helping to co-create it at the same time that we're moving forward. We're creating the path by walking the path. Here's what he wrote. September 27th, 2020. The shadow's brain, heart, and soul is darker than dark. We're on a path of spiritual disruption of the sacred natural order of the universe. The light is at the end of this dark tunnel, and this is the natural spiritual law. Chaos seeks order, and order is light. Our ancestral teaching is to live a prayer of gratitude, walk with prayer, and experience your whole being with prayer. This has got to be the way of life right now. And when I say live it, I mean drink the sacred water with a prayer every time you drink. Thank the sacred light and breath and all creation. The flowers, the trees, the four-leggeds, our relatives in the air and in the water, our multi-dimensional relatives and everything above and below. If you live like this, you move to a place where you have unconditional love for all creation. I don't know how long we'll have to do this, but this is how the divine feminine vibration is initiating us right now. And this is not something that I just came up with. These things are part of a narrative that my grandma shared. She said to do this and not forget, because all of us forget sometimes, but we need to remember. There is a dark spot on the fabric of the universe, but that dark spot cannot hold out because goodness always wins. Love is the bottom line. The dark spot is cured by love. People have called saying they're scared. We need to approach this historical time with the knowing that we will see the light at the end of the tunnel. All that we're hearing is fear-based, and that is the way disruption is caused. But the people will experience a positive outcome. Right now, we can live in our homes in a sacred way by being in prayer, cooking for each other, loving our families, and taking care of each other. All of us need to think in a positive, knowing way, because our thoughts and our knowing are energy that will affect the outcome. Basil Braveheart. Unitarian Universalists have long said that there is a spark of ultimate goodness within each person, and that we live in an interdependent, interconnected universe. We are part of everything, part of all that is. We are not separate from it. This is the source of our strength, our courage, and our hope. We believe that we're part of something larger than ourselves, and that something new is possible. We don't believe we'll be rescued by a distant, benevolent God, but we believe that humans are co-creators and that we have an important role to play in whatever comes next. And we're ready. And we know that it's not all up to any one of us to figure this out by ourselves alone. We also know that there are always possibilities greater than what we alone can imagine. And we're ready for that too. At times we lose touch with our sacred stories, or they no longer carry enough saving grace for the current time, or the sacred story we need does not yet exist. We've been taught not to listen to the people who are most affected in our culture. And we've been taught to ignore the wisdom of people who live closer to wilderness, closer to mystery. We've been taught to disdain that. And so we forget how to open ourselves to vision, how to set an intention, and how to offer it to the mystery with an open heart. So we become separated at times like now, and we cannot do these sacred things. And the consequences are as dire as current weather patterns and social imbalance and social injustice. But there's good news. The good news is that we can listen to the world, to nature, to the gods, to God, and to the people who are most affected. We can search the old stories and the old ways for new interpretations. We can listen for a new story taking shape among us. And we can set an intention, a positive statement of what we will do and how we will be, how we will act with love to help the world in this time when it is going through such spasms of great change. We're going to continue to listen to the sound of the calabash and let it unite what's inside of us with what's outside of us. When we were working on this service, Bev said that the sound will help us listen for what's already beating in our own heart. And when we have that, we might more easily discover the words for our intention at this time. Bev, is there anything you might like to add?
I'll share with you what I ask myself. What are the gifts, wisdoms, and knowledge that I need to harvest right now to move forward in my life? You can write those intentions down, and words and rhythms have deep, deep connections. Those words can become a rhythm. Say it out loud. Find a way to repeat it, and let that, in a way, become a mantra. You can say it, you can play it, You can sing it, you can walk it, you can dance it, and that gives you a piece of your own personal prayer power.
Amen, sister. So let's listen now to the sound of the calabash. You might like to drum along. You can tap on your body. Tap on a book. You can tap on a table. You can tap on your dog if your dog doesn't object. And when you feel ready, you can ask yourself, what am I grateful for? Out of gratitude, what is my intention for the earth? How will I walk and sing and dance this rhythm into the future? And as you do this, you want to listen for a short word or a short phrase. You can get more detailed later, but right now you're looking for something short, a key, a mantra, a little phrase that's going to help you return over the days to come to your compassion and your intention. Rooted and ready. When you're ready, if you want, you can write your mantra on that paper that you gathered earlier. And you can write it, and you can fold it, and you can tuck your mantra under a pumpkin or a squash or a gourd right in your own home, that you can put it there for safekeeping so that you know where to find it. And you can look for it regularly in this critical time. Every week we come to this gathering with great need and great love. We sometimes feel a great emptiness, and we are looking for help to get to a better place. And if that's true for you, welcome. You've come to that good place. You're welcome here. You're not alone. Sometimes we come here longing to give of our time and our talent and our treasure, our money, our resources. We want to make a difference and help make the world a kinder, more equitable, a more free and respectful place. When we give, we put all of this into motion. May this be done with great gladness and great gratitude. There will be drumming for the offertory today, and if you want, you can drum and you can dance along at home, because what a fabulous way to co-create. So we give thanks this morning for all that helps us to listen, to know our intention, and find good ways to put it into motion in the world. Our final song this morning is Wo Ya Ya. Pam will lead us. The words will be on your screen. You can sing along and dance along at home.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Wo ya ya, wo ya ya, wo ya ya, wo ya ya. We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Wo ya ya, wo ya ya, wo ya ya, wo ya ya, wo ya ya ya, wo ya ya ya, wo ya ya ya, wo ya ya ya.
We'll get there. We know we will. In 2009, Debbie Millman wrote an essay for new graduates called Fail Safe. Her words give us a sense of the immense power of possibility that exists that each of us can discover. She says, heed these words of Robert Frost.
Start with a big fat lump in your throat. Start with a profound sense of wrong, a deep homesickness, or a crazy lovesickness, and run with it. If you imagine less, less will be what you undoubtedly deserve. Do what you love and don't stop until you get what you love. Work as hard as you can. Imagine immensities. Don't compromise and don't waste time. Start now. Not 20 years from now, not 2 weeks from now, now.
Now. The world is calling us now, so start now. Imagine immensities, and don't stop for anything but love. Go in peace to embrace the rhythm of life. Go with the power of love to do everything in your power to help heal the world. Ashe, amen. Blessed be. Let's go.